Zidane Danny, Electro Ninja here, and welcome back to Electro Ninja's Lab. In today's video, we are doing an honest review for Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Now, obviously, a lot of people are probably thinking, this game looks like it's DLC. That's something that I've been hearing a lot of people saying. And I have, at this point, completed the story of the game. Have I completed the game 100%? No. Is that possible? Possibly. But is it a pain in the ass? Abso-freaking-lutely, it's a pain in the ass. There is a lot that you need to do in order to complete the game. First off, obviously, getting all of the booble gems, whatever. That's a huge pain in the backside, as is getting all of the Korok seeds, and much, much more. But as a whole, I think that the game is absolutely great. And as for the DLC thing, no, it is not glorified DLC. I don't understand where this idea came from. That so many people, especially nowadays, that we live in a world of DLC, I don't understand why people are so obsessed with the idea that games can't just be a continuation of the story. Obviously, there are certain games where it does feel like it really should have been DLC, such as the Pokemon games with Sun and Moon. When Sun and Moon changed, we got Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. That was mostly the exact same story. It just added a little bit extra on top. So obviously, like, sometimes, yeah, it kind of makes a certain degree of sense, but in this world, we look at games that are very similar, and we think, oh, it could have just been DLC. It could have just been this. It could have just been that. And it baffles my mind because there are so many people who, while we're hearing all of this happening, we are also hearing people saying, we need completed games, blah, 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 blah. We need games that are fully complete when they release, and so on and so forth. We don't want DLC. We want it to be a completed game from the get-go. We don't want DLC. And that is really weird to me. But at the same time, why exactly do people say that this should be DLC? And because it is literally an entire new game. Yes, it is taking a lot of assets. In fact, the majority of the assets for this game are from the are from Breath of the Wild, but they did change a lot. They practically remodeled the entire map. They tripled the size practically, and there's a lot of things with that they added, like, a whole bunch. They made new stories. They made new side quests. They added new bosses. They added all of these different things to make the game bigger and better. And yet there are people who are still like, it's glorified DLC. It is not. It is a fully fledged new game. And yes, there is a lot of things that they took from the previous game to remodel it into the new game. But as a whole, not really. It's pretty much a brand new game. So, yeah. Obviously, I do understand a certain degree of why people think of this as this doesn't add very much. But at the same time, like, games have been doing this for pretty much ever. Like, if we just look at Kingdom Hearts, obviously Kingdom Hearts, most of the games take assets from the previous games to remake them into new things. And the older the game is, the more likely it is that if it is a sequel to something, they took the assets from the previous game and transferred it over to the new game. Because it saves time, it saves money. We've noticed this forever with, like, movies and shows. Even animations will do the same thing, because if you have the assets, why not just use them? And it makes it 1,000 times easier. If you're going to take the assets that you already have, use them, because it saves time in the long run. So, yeah, there's that. But as a whole, I really enjoy the new Tears of the Kingdom. It's a lot of fun, especially a lot of the extra stories, because while there was a little bit of character development with the previous game, with Breath of the Wild, most of the characters really didn't get that much characterization, and some of them it felt pretty minor, to say the least, with the most characters probably being Riju, Sidon, and Yunobo, which is funny because it's also like the three characters that continued on. Uh, and and as for the Rito, they switched it from whoever the character was in the previous one to being Tulin in this one as being the main character from that specific region. Um, which I also have to say, I'm really glad that they changed the sages. I know that there's a lot of people who would probably be like, but I really liked the way that the sages worked in the previous game. And that's understandable, but at the same time, the new sages are so much more fun because they get to join you on your quest. I think it's funny that a lot of people are like, it gets really annoying to have all five of the sages out all the time, but like in combat, that is so freaking useful. Being able to launch Yunobo off to do whatever damage, and even if they're not dealing that much damage without doing their special attacks, just the fact that they are fighting your enemies throughout the battle is like really useful. Um, Now, obviously, there are certain things where it's like, yeah, that could be better, yeah, that could be worse. But as a whole, I think that it's really fun what they've done with all of these with all of these characters, um, especially considering the fact that Tolan and Yunobo probably the most useful, but four of, or I guess all five of them have their uses that make them invaluable. Which on top of that, I also have to say, like, the fifth sage, that was cool. I'm really glad that they did that. Although I do have to say, doing Minoru really early can be a bit annoying. But obviously she can be a lot of fun to have around, and especially if you have her before you're technically supposed to, like, she can kick some ass. Obviously there are certain things that you probably do want to do before you actually go and get her, but at the same time, like, having her on your party is so helpful, especially considering the fact that, like, once you have all of those parts and have done a lot of that story, it's just like, yeah, it's done. It's just, she's there. She's just kicking ass and taking names. Um, like I said, I really like her as a character, and especially when there's a lot of things that, like, they're trying to hint towards the fact that she's there really early on, um, with lots of side quests, and by going out and doing these side quests, it's really fun. It's nice. They do a lot of things with that, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, that's a bit annoying. It's funny to have, like, her in your party, and then all of these people are talking about her, and it's like, she's right there, right? I don't know. It's funny. Like I said, um, I do think also that it's kind of interesting that they kind of have a set way for you to do things, but at the same time, you can literally do anything in this game at any point. You can do all of these different side quests really freaking early. You can do practically anything in any order. Do you want to wait to get Tolan until the very end? Then you technically can. In fact, well, that is kind of stupid though, because, like, Tolan is really freaking useful. Holy crap, he is useful. Like, pretty much any of the you could get any of them and just mess around with them, and that I like that. I like that you can do a lot of that stuff. As for the abilities, I think that they are, in general, a good improvement. I think that there are certain things that I would have liked to have seen done a little bit better, but at the same time, they did try to make sure that it was well balanced, and they kept a lot of these things active, and that you can still do a lot of these ones. I think the biggest issue is just the bombs in general. Not being able to have the bombs and easy access can be a little bit annoying, especially near the beginning. But once you are actually playing through the game, you're getting bomb flowers pretty quickly. And as for and if you just need to destroy rocks, like get Yunobo. He's really freaking easy to use. Um, and also refacing off against the bosses in the underground. I love that. There's a lot of little details throughout the game that I really, really enjoy. Especially the underground is just such a massive area that you can just do all of these little things with. Now, I should probably clarify, have I completed the game 100%? No, and I don't think that I probably will, because there is so much in this game that you have to do in order to 100% it, with defeating all of the all of the big bosses, to going around the world and filling out all of your stats, even getting all of your equipment can be quite a challenge. Most of it is pretty easy to get, but at the same time, it's like, do I need it? Not really. Like I said, there's lots of little things here and there that's just like, but what if we did this? And another aspect that I think that would be really have been useful is if the your different characters actually would occasionally just do their special abilities. Like maybe just as an example, Tolan will Tolan's main ability, it's really not useful in combat, but pretty much all the others, it could be really funny to see them do certain, like, smaller versions of those. Like maybe Riju will sometimes just like fire off lightning around her, and it will like completely obliterate smaller enemies that are just around her, especially in points where you're dealing with a lot of enemies. The biggest times that you're going to be dealing with those types of things are when you're doing these specific battles. Maybe Yunobu will spin off and with his rolling ability just at random intervals. I don't think that it was I think it's good that they don't do that often, and I don't think that they should be something that you get right away. I really like the idea of the sage's wills. Maybe I think that the first level with the sage's wills, which is what you get normally, by using them, they get stronger in their normal attacks. But I think another thing that would have been really nice for them to do is maybe you can it'll decrease the amount of time that it takes for them to load their abilities, but also they'll occasionally, and I want to say this again, occasionally they'll fire off their special abilities. Like maybe Sidon is probably the best example of this. Maybe when he's running up to do an attack, he'll just fire off a blast of water to take down an enemy a little bit easier. So that he has it, because technically he does have a little bit of range with his ability, but he never uses it. And maybe Riju will fire off a little bit of lightning when she strikes an enemy. Maybe Tolan will blow away a small group of enemies, as basically, since he's often the closest to you, by having him there, sometimes he'll just, when you're in danger and you're being attacked like crazy, he'll just blow them away from you to keep you safer. Like when maybe you get knocked down and he'll come down to your rescue, blow your enemies away, so they're not just wailing on you. I think that would have been a really nice thing to have, especially in certain points. And that would allow the enemies to continue to get stronger and more larger groups of enemies as you're continuing on through the game, because of how many allies you have. Maybe Minoru will will create new weapons. Will just like pop off a new any of the abilities. Maybe by getting a ultimate solemn bell or whatever. Maybe she'll just randomly equip like some random Zonai device and fire it off. Whatever might seem to be the most useful at this point in time. Like if you're dealing with ice enemies, she'll just randomly bring out a fire a flamethrower, or if you're dealing with fire enemies, she'll bring out the ice. And the same goes with lightning. Lightning is a little bit weird, but you get my point. She'll just do certain abilities whenever when she realizes that you need them. Maybe she'll bring out a cannon or something like that. Little things like that. And maybe it's like a very special way that they actually handle it. It would have to be very, very careful, whatever the method that they choose to go with for especially her, because she has like she could be really strong if you're not careful with that. Um, or maybe she will just maybe again with the Tolan idea. When you get knocked down, she'll pick you up, put her on her back, and then launch into the air with a rocket or something to get you away from the enemy in a quick method so that you can recover and get back into fighting gear. Different things like that. Just imagining these little things, because there were certain, especially, I think that the ability that I miss the most from this game was, from Breath of the Wild, was the fact that, Sidon's sister, I'm forgetting what her name is, but she would heal you. And even if the healing is not a factor, at least the ability to recover quickly, that was such a useful technique. And I really like that. There's like lots of little things that I'm thinking of just off the top of my head that could really have worked well for doing all of these little things. And I do think that they could do a lot more with that as you continue on with the story. Um, and also, one other thing I do want to bring up, I think that they should have still kept, but not necessarily use them as much, the different types of arrows from the first game. Maybe they're like a little bit rarer. Like the flame arrows, the fire, the exploding arrows, so on and so forth. All of those different arrows. Imagine if those were still in the game, but they were to a smaller degree. Maybe they aren't as effective. Like the explosions will cause an explosion, but maybe it's not as powerful as if you put a bomb flower on your thing or whatever. Maybe the fire arrows, their fire lasts slightly less as long as like with a fire fruit, or the same thing goes with a lot of the electric abilities. Maybe it's not as powerful. Just like slight little changes like that. I think that would have been really cool. But as a whole, I think that the game is really well made, especially considering the fact that you're going to be adventuring a lot. And also, like, at a certain point, your materials that you get are so you're going to be mostly wanting to get the really powerful supplies. And later on, when you actually have all those supplies, what the main thing that you're going to be using those extras for is either selling them, or in other cases, making sure that you have the equipment upgraded. And I do think that the upgrade system is a lot better, as well as all of the different outfits. I really like them. I think that they should. There are certain things that have way too steep of a cost, such as pretty much anything that has a star fragment use, because like using a star fragment, like that is one of the rarest items that you're going to be getting. Um, and I think that it's a bit too steep in my opinion, but considering the fact, because it's a weird situation, because obviously like every time that you're skydiving, there's a chance that a star fragment will fall. So I think it's like, especially it's more common at night, but even still, like all of those different things, like you basically want, in order to farm star fragments, you basically need to go up to the sky, skydive a bunch, and keep doing that over and over again throughout the night, just to see if maybe it'll spawn, which, let's be honest, it doesn't happen that often. Uh, and there's lots of things like that farming certain items, it can be really freaking tricky. But at the same time, it's fun, especially considering the fact that you can do so much exploring. Honestly, I feel like if I was to continue to play this game for a while, which I don't know if I will, because there are a lot of other games that I need to get through and I need to review, cough cough Final Fantasy 16, cough cough Jedi Survivor, that I want to focus on those right now. So will I continue with the Zelda series with Tears of the Kingdom? I think I'm done for now, but there's so much more to explore, and I'm sure that the Zelda community is going to be finding out all of these different things for the remainder of this game's lifetime. Who knows exactly what else people will find as they play through it, but I for one am super excited, and I think that it's going to be a lot of fun. But anyways, guys, I've been Electro Ninja, and I will see you guys next time. But on!